Hey there, lovely soul. Welcome back to Noah's Stories. Have you ever sent a message that wasn't meant to be read, but somehow it reached exactly the right person? Today's story is about a letter lost in delivery but found in destiny, a tale of healing, hope, and unexpected connection. Let's begin. The small apartment was silent, broken only by the soft ticking of the wall clock. Elise Morgan sat alone at her kitchen table, a blank sheet of paper in front of her, the pen untouched since dusk. Outside the window, the city exhaled beneath the veil of night, but inside Elise, a storm still raged. It had been 8 months since Chris left. 8 months since he told her she was no longer inspiring. 8 long months of wondering what the other woman had that she didn't. Elise had given up so much. Her dream of becoming a writer, her chance at a stable job, and countless late nights working extra hours at the high school library so that he could finish his architecture degree. And then he was gone. No warning, just an apology drenched in cliché and an echoing emptiness. Her therapist had once said, "Write to the one who hurt you, say everything, then burn it." Elise had scoffed at the idea, but tonight she was tired. Tired of tears, tired of carrying pain with nowhere to set it down. So she picked up the pen. "Dear Chris." The words flowed, crashing onto the page like a broken dam. Elise didn't cry, she just wrote, until her hand ached and her tears had run dry. When she was done, she slipped the letter into an envelope, unconsciously scrawling Chris' old address across the front, then tucked it into her bag. "I'll burn it tomorrow," she whispered. Just a letter, never meant to be sent. But it was about to reach someone else entirely, someone she had never met, yet someone who would change everything. 3 miles away, Adrian Wolfe stood quietly by the floor-to-ceiling windows of his high-rise apartment. The city stretched out below, glimmering, pulsing with life, but to him, it all felt distant, unreal. Once hailed as a rising star in the startup world, Adrian had founded LearnSpace, an online education platform that exploded in popularity and valuation. But success had its price. 1 year ago, he collapsed during a board meeting. The doctors called it severe burnout paired with anxiety. Since then, Adrian had retreated from the world. No more meetings, no more keynotes, no more admiration from the tech crowd. Decisions still bore his name, but his assistant ran the show. That morning, when the doorman buzzed about mail, Adrian gave his usual response: "Leave it at the door." He said that to everyone now, employees, friends, even family. Among the stack of lifeless, machine-printed envelopes, one stood out, handwritten. It was addressed to Chris Grant, someone who used to live here before Adrian bought the place. He almost threw it away, but something in the shaky, emotional script made him pause. He opened it, then read it. Once, then again. This woman, Elise, hadn't meant to write to him, but every line felt like it had been written for him. "I feel like I'm disappearing." The words struck like a blade, because that was exactly how Adrian had felt for a very long time. Adrian had read Elise's letter 3 times before setting it down. It was private, far too personal for someone like him to have seen, but he couldn't look away. There was something raw and painfully honest in her words. No dramatics, no embellishments, just the truth of someone trying to keep going. He hadn't planned to respond, but that night he sat down at his desk, pulled out his long-forgotten, dust-covered stationery, and wrote to the woman who wrote to Chris. He explained that the letter had come to the wrong address, that he should have thrown it away, but he didn't. He read it, every word, and in it he saw himself. He didn't know her, and she knew nothing about him, and maybe that made it easier to say, "You are not invisible. I see you in the ache of your words," and sometimes that's enough to let hope in again. He didn't sign his name, just wrote, "A stranger." The next day, Elise found the handwritten envelope in her mailbox. Her heart skipped as she read it, her cheeks flushing with embarrassment. Someone had seen her pain, her rawest emotions. But then, something shifted. Embarrassment gave way to confusion, then a strange sort of comfort, and finally, hope. "This is insane," she muttered. But that night, After her younger brother Ryan, a freshman in college, had gone to bed, she sat at the kitchen table again. "Dear stranger," she wrote that the first letter was meant as therapy and never supposed to be sent. But his words, his kindness, had made her feel seen in a way she hadn't felt in years. And just like that, they began writing. No full names, no pictures, just letters, where they left behind the truest parts of themselves. 3 weeks had passed since the first letter. Elise and Adrian were still exchanging letters regularly. In each one they shared not just pain, but life's little details. The way sunlight fell across the hardwood floor each morning, the familiar clinking of dishes at the corner cafe, or how Elise's younger brother Ryan organized his pencils by color to calm his nerves before exams. Gradually, Elise began to take shape in Adrian's mind, not through photographs, but through words. He imagined her voice, soft, thoughtful, quietly strong. He didn't know what she looked like, but he knew how she saw the world. One Tuesday morning, Adrian left his apartment for the first time in weeks. He went to the high school Elise had mentioned in passing, the one where she worked as a library assistant. Not to meet her, just to see the world she had written about. He stood across the street, hands tucked in his coat pockets, heart pounding harder than it should have. The school didn't look like any office he had known. It was alive, grounded, and full of messy, honest energy. Through a window, he caught a glimpse of a woman with chestnut hair arranging books on a shelf. He didn't know for sure if it was her, but something inside whispered, maybe. He didn't stay long, just a few minutes, but that night he wrote, "Elise, today I went near where you work. Not to frighten you, just to understand a little more of your world. Maybe I saw you, maybe I didn't, but either way, I saw something clearly. I want to meet you, really meet you." Elise had read his letter several times that quiet evening. The final words, "I want to meet you, really meet you," echoed in her mind like a gentle invitation that couldn't be ignored. She had thought about this moment, imagining his voice, his smile, even his eyes, but part of her feared that meeting face to face would shatter everything they had carefully built through words. Still, she knew her answer would be yes. She replied, choosing a familiar spot, a small park across from the school library where she often ate lunch on sunny days. "Thursday, noon," she wrote. "If you come, I'll be on the bench near the fountain. If you don't, I'll understand." That Thursday, Elise arrived early. She wore a soft blue dress and had her hair tied back neatly. In her hands, she clutched a book. For courage, maybe. She sat on the bench, her heart pounding so loudly she could almost hear it. Across the park, Adrian stepped through the gate. He wore a simple white button-down and jeans, carrying a copy of The Little Prince, a signal they had agreed on in their letters. He didn't know what Elise looked like, but he hoped the book would guide her to him. When their eyes met, they both froze. No words at first. Then Elise rose, walking slowly toward him. "Adrian?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "You're Elise?" he said. They smiled, not perfectly, but with the quiet relief of two people who had finally found each other after a long journey made entirely of words. They sat down on the stone bench by the fountain, the very place where, just weeks ago, only written words had connected them. Now there was breeze, running water, and two people learning how to exist outside the safety of ink and paper. At first, the conversation was hesitant. Elise fidgeted with the small poetry book in her hands, something she'd brought like a charm to steady herself. Adrian occasionally glanced down at the Little Prince in his lap as if the pages might tell him what to say next. "I didn't expect to feel this nervous," Adrian admitted. Elise chuckled quietly. "Me neither. I thought we'd talk like in the letters, but it's harder somehow, in person." But slowly, the awkwardness began to fade. Elise invited Adrian to take a short walk through the nearby streets. She showed him a tiny sandwich shop she liked after work, then brought him to a sidewalk drink stand, where they sat on plastic stools, sharing iced lemon tea. Adrian was quietly amazed by the simplicity and pulse of the city he'd long kept distant. Elise spoke with calm warmth, and Adrian listened, sometimes smiling, sometimes just silent, letting her voice fill the space. As sunset bathed the sky in amber, they returned to the park. Before parting, Adrian turned to her. "Will we still write letters?" Elise nodded. "It's still the place where I feel most like myself." After that gentle first date, Adrian and Elise kept writing, but now there was something different in their letters, a new rhythm, subtle and deeper. They met occasionally, sometimes at the little drink stand, sometimes at the park, or just walking around Elise's neighborhood. Elise began to trust what she was feeling. She didn't call it love, not yet, but it was something real, something soft, something that made her smile just from seeing a new letter in her mailbox. Until one morning, she saw Adrian, not in person, but on the front page of the finance section in a newspaper left behind at the library. The photo showed him speaking at a major conference. Beneath the headline, "Adrian Wolf Returns, LearnSpace CEO Steps Back into the Spotlight." Elise froze. She read the article as if trying to disprove what she already knew. She had known Adrian was healing. She had known he had stepped away from his life, but never, not once, had he told her he was the founder of a billion-dollar tech company, that he was someone who made headlines. She had sat next to him on a park bench, shared the quiet fragments of her life, while he had kept the biggest truth about himself hidden. That night, Elise couldn't write by hand. Her fingers trembled too much. She typed, "Adrian, I don't know where to begin. I told you things I've never told anyone, my weakest parts, not for advice, not for pity, but because I believed there were no roles between us. But today I realized you never gave me the same chance. You spoke of loneliness, but never showed me who you truly are. You let me believe you were like me, also trying to piece yourself back together. But how can I trust anything when the biggest part of you was a secret? I don't know what we are, but right now, I can't keep going." Adrian sat in the quiet of his apartment, Elise's letter spread out in front of him. He had read it 3 times. Each time, it landed like a punch to the chest. There was no anger in her words, just pain, because she was right. He had held back the biggest part of who he was, not to deceive, but out of fear. Fear that if Elise knew his name, his world, everything between them would change, that their fragile, honest connection would crumble beneath the weight of his identity. But he had been wrong. She wasn't hurt by his success. She was hurt because he hadn't trusted her enough to be honest. That same day, Adrian sat at his desk and began to write. "Elise, you have every right to be angry, every right to be disappointed. I was wrong not to tell you the truth. I thought that by hiding it, I was protecting what we had, but I see now, I wasn't protecting you. I was shielding myself. When your first letter arrived, I was at rock bottom. I didn't know who I was anymore. I had no direction. And then you came into my life with words that were raw, and you didn't try to save me. You simply existed. And that was enough to make me want to return to the world. I don't expect forgiveness, not right away, but I'll be sitting on our bench in the park this Sunday at noon. If you don't come, I'll understand. But I'll wait, not because I deserve it, but because you deserve to see the truth of me." Elise read Adrian's letter 3 times. The final line, "Not because I deserve it, but because you deserve to see the truth of me," echoed in her mind like a quiet call she couldn't ignore. She was still hurt, still angry at his silence, at the things he had kept hidden. But deep beneath that, she missed him, the letters, the quiet walks, the way he listened, as if everything she said mattered. She didn't sleep that night. Her thoughts churned, torn between walking away and giving him and herself a chance to begin again. Honestly this time. Sunday at noon, Elise went to the park. Adrian was already there, seated on their familiar bench. He stood as she approached, as if unsure she was real. She sat beside him, leaving a small space between them, not rejection, but cautious grace. "You came," he said softly. "I still have questions," she replied, "and feelings, and I'm not ready to give up." They talked for hours. Everything that had gone unspoken was finally laid bare. Hurt, fear, confusion, and the tender thread of something neither had dared to name. Elise cried, and for the first time, so did Adrian, not from guilt, but from the weight lifting off his shoulders. In the end, Elise said, "If we start again, it has to be without secrets." "I'm Adrian Wolf," he said, "not a CEO, not a headline, just a man who found his way back through your letters. And maybe," he thought silently, "a man who could finally use what he had to help in ways that mattered." One early winter afternoon, Ryan ran into the bookstore, his face glowing brighter than Elise had ever seen. In his hand was an envelope bearing the logo of the LearnSpace Foundation. "Elise, I got the scholarship, full coverage, tuition, dorm, books." Elise looked at her brother, joy flooding her chest, mixed with a flicker of curiosity. Quietly, she glanced over at Adrian, who was organizing a new shelf in the corner of the cafe. "Did you know anything about this?" she asked later that evening when the shop had closed and the two of them sat in their usual quiet corner. Adrian nodded without dodging. "I nominated Ryan, not because of you, but because he deserves it. I simply opened a door. He walked through it on his own." Elise was quiet for a moment, then slowly nodded. She knew if this had happened months ago, she might have been angry. But not now, not when there were no secrets between them, only understanding. The Chapter 1 Books and Cafe officially opened on a bright January morning. Not crowded, not flashy, but full of warmth. Elise had chosen every book, every piece of background music, every cozy reading nook. Adrian didn't interfere. He had helped fund it, yes, but Elise insisted on paying him back gradually. This was her dream, and she needed to stand on her own feet. "We're partners," she said, "but this is my Chapter 1. Adrian smiled. "I'm just honored to appear in its first page." Though they saw each other almost every day, in the shop, on walks, over simple dinners, they continued writing letters to each other. Not long ones, sometimes just a few lines, but each letter remained a thread, reminding them that their connection began with words, with honesty, and with time. One snowy evening, when the streets were quiet and golden lamplight flickered over the thin layer of snow, Adrian entered the cafe holding a small gift. "For you," he said, handing her a dark leather notebook. Elise opened it. On the first page, in his handwriting, were the words, "For the next chapters, written in your hand, with someone by your side." She looked up, eyes glistening. Adrian slowly knelt on one knee, under the warm glow and faint scent of coffee in winter. "Elise Morgan," he said softly, voice trembling slightly, "the first time I saw your words, I didn't know they would change my life, but they did. You did. Your words saved me. Your heart led me back to myself. Will you let me stand beside you, chapter after chapter, moment after moment, not just in letters, but in life? Will you marry me?" Elise didn't respond with words. She smiled, eyes wet, and nodded. Yes. They embraced beneath the quiet hush of the season's first snow. Outside, the world went on, but inside, two once strangers began to write a shared life. From a mistaken letter to something beautifully, impossibly right. If this story touched your heart, even just a little, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more soul-stirring tales from Noah's stories. Have you ever connected deeply with someone through words alone? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to read them. Until next time, keep writing your story, one page at a time.